I've done it again, guys. Oh, let's start again. Start again. Oh, it was really good, Clayton, wasn't it? It was really good. It was really good, guys. I'm going to have to edit that whole thing out. That was absolutely... We had the loop going, then I turned my volume down, and then I did the whole spiel, and you couldn't hear me. You couldn't hear me. You couldn't hear me. Oh dear, the last few episodes have been terrible. We've also got G Greenslate here. Hi G, how you doing? Let me hang on a sec. I need to get the questions back up because I closed it because we had the looping issue. Oh, dearie me, dearie me. 1 second, Clayton. Okay. G Greenslade was coming on next week. Hopefully she's still... It's all good. It's all good. Okay, guys. I've got the comments back up. All right, we're back. We are back. We'll cut that bit out. Start again. G'day. How you doing? Adam Williams here from Adam Williams Creative. We've got Clayton John with us. It's going to be incredible. We've had a few hiccups so far this morning, but we're ready to go. We are ready to go, and I'll introduce Clayton in a minute. Let me run through the spiel first of all. I had that incredible spiel on why Clayton is so inspiring to me, and he's going to be inspiring to you. I've got all these different forms of paints and brushes and cyanotypes over on the shelves over here, and the reason I have those is because, you know, being so inspired by Clayton's work over the last 18 months and what he does, I've got a couple of quotes here. I find his work, you know, incredibly mysterious, incredibly emotive, and very unique, very authentic. This is one of the quotes that we had in the discussion. Hopefully, yep, you can hear me all okay now. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. His work has expanded beyond the traditional confines of photography to enter into a mixed media presentation, incorporating beeswax, oils, acrylics, and basically anything he can find in the junk pile. He incorporates that into his photography these days. And I said in the chat earlier this morning, prepare to have your conceptions of your photography challenged, because there's so much more we can do with our photography. We can take it, you know, our digital photography, for example. Often we don't even print it. We take it, we share it on social media, but we can print that and we can add to it with waxes and paints and oils and, you know, scratch into it and destroy it and remake it and layer it and all these incredible things to make something, you know, completely handmade. And I actually want to talk to Clayton a little bit about, you know, value of printing or value of hand making versus just pressing the button and shooting something out. You know, there's all these different things that we can talk about today. He has a bucket full of awards. I'm going to try and cut back on mentioning awards because I think there's a bit of a disconnect between winning awards and the photography that I'm really inspired by. Not to say that winning awards is you know, should be downplayed, because there is an incredible skill, and the images that do get the awards are incredibly powerful in themselves, but we're not going to touch on that too much today. Okay, using techniques as multiple exposure to arrive at the finished piece. One more quote before I introduce Clayton. So often it is the very mistakes, and as I said just before when I was muted, maybe why you love me so much, guys, because I am full of them. You know, every day we have a bit of a laugh and it takes us a bit of time to get running, and I only mentioned that this morning, that I thought I had it all perfect, but one thing led to another and cascaded into an absolute disaster there for a minute, but we're back, we're running. It is the very mistakes made in the organic process of layering image upon image that often make the final image. So it is that imperfection that Clayton often is drawn to, falls in love with, and inspires, and even, you know, completes that finished image. Prepare to have your conceptions of photography challenged. Let's welcome Clayton on board here. Clayton, here we go. I think we're good.
Morning, everybody.
We got there.
What do they say about what is that saying about when you make a whole building and you get you got to make one thing wrong, just to prove that there's someone above you, and you're not perfect.
What do they say if you just make everything wrong every day? Like,
I mean, it's called being a human. It's a wonderful attribute.
the funny thing is, like, in my everyday life, I'm such a perfectionist, and no stone unturned. And then, we come into this live scenario, and live is just completely off the cuff. Things happen, microphones get turned off and on, and all sorts of different things. Anyway, mate, I'm glad to have you here. And as I said, we have G Greenslade is with us on the live stream here, and G's coming on next Thursday. If you've seen G's work, hopefully she's still going to join us. She's probably on Messenger at the moment saying, Adam, I'm not too sure. G, I promise it'll be perfect. It'll be perfect for next week. But if you haven't seen G's work, just quickly jump over and check that out after the show today, and you'll be excited with what we've got next week. Clayton, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about the little hiccups and whatnot. Mate, tell us a little bit about this.
It's actually perfect, mate. I must say it fits in exactly with the work that I'm doing right now. So I think it was just divinely inspired, mate.
Oh, absolutely, mate.
You gotta have a bit of filth, like that. You wouldn't be human if there wasn't a bit of disaster,
At least it takes the edge off, mate, doesn't it? It takes the edge off a bit. We can be more comfortable. We can know that whatever happens throughout the rest of the stream, that we've had those moments already, so it's all
right,
mate. Mate, yeah. Tell us a little. Just give us a little bit of background on yourself initially. I guess where you first picked up a camera, or what inspired you to first do that, and just a brief explanation of your background.
Yeah, sure. So look, I'm South African born. And I've been out of the country for about 20 years. I lived in the UK for about 8 years. The first photographic or camera-related thing I did was as a broadcast cameraman for the South African equivalent of 60 Minutes.
Okay.
I got employed as a journalist there, research journalist, with almost no experience whatsoever. I think the executive producer fancied me. And yeah, unfortunately, I was appalling. I was absolutely rubbish, And I remember him pulling me into the office one day, and he pointed behind him to this pile of kind of, manila files, and he said, "Every one of these persons wants your job, my friend. You better pull your finger out so quickly, or else you're out of here." And I absolutely shit. Like I just went, I don't have the skill, I don't have the experience. I've been hired really not unskilled at all. And there was, the only thing that I could do was actually learn the camera. And so I did that, and I loved it, man. I sort of had a sense of what I was doing because my hands are practical. Whereas with the research stuff, I was getting bogged down, missing the wood for the trees, and really got no sense of perspective. Whereas with the camera, I had a sense of something, there was something there, and the producers loved me because they weren't paying the cameraman to shoot stuff for them, so they were getting fairly decent footage, and it just grew and grew from there, and that's where it all started. So yeah, broadcast cameraman was my first skill as a camera, and yeah, I'm a bit of a Johnny come lately when it comes to digital photography. I only got my first digital camera in 2007, and actually just before we got together, I went looking for my first images, and I've actually got them, and I can show them to you. I've got 2 of the first images I ever made in digital camera, and I actually think that they might even speak to what I'm doing now, which I found really intriguing when I found them. I thought, oh, gee, that's quite novel. They're selfies, which I have to confess is actually, I find that the camera really is an extension of me as an exploration of myself, because that's the only way that anything makes sense. If I'm not using that device as an extension of me searching of who I am, where I am, what I am, then what is the point? It's just financial, or it's just superficial, or it's just to impress someone else. There really isn't something greater, and I find that slightly tragic. That's just not so. It wouldn't sit comfortably with me. So yeah, that's my background a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think we'll touch on more about that. I really want to touch on and have a deeper conversation, I think, on that expression of yourself within your art, because I think it's I mean, I think it's probably the most important thing in my own art myself. And would you say that's probably the absolute number one most important aspect of your art too?
No doubt about that, Adam. I mean, there is no other reason that I'm doing what I'm doing. And I take inspiration from a lot of people, and I'm standing on the shoulders of absolute giants. And every one of those giants, I've taken something from because of something deeper. It wasn't the superficiality of their images. The images were great, but actually it was something else that I was drawn to. Um, I've got some classic examples that I'll talk about later as to um, yeah, maybe I'll just mention one right now because you know, there was an amazing thing that happened. I think it was 2014 or 2015. Um, the APAs had happened, the Print Awards, Australian Print Awards, and um, this person had won the landscape photography section, and I've only just fresh off the boat really, so I didn't really know too many local photographers, and she had won this award, and there were these black and white images of sheds, mate, in the fields in like what looked like the South Island, New Zealand, and I just went like, I don't get it, man. Like, what is that? Like, this person's won the landscape photographer of the year, and I was making all these pretty pictures, glamorous, and I went, I just don't get this. And I actually applied there and then. I was really kind of went, I don't get this, and I want to get this because there's something drawing me towards it. And so I applied to do a workshop with Jackie Rankin, and that was a big thing. And what was even more beautiful than that, within a day, my phone rang. At that point, I had a gallery in Bundeena, and I'll talk about that later. But I got a phone call, and the person said, "Oh, it's Jackie Rankin." And I went, "What?" She said, "Yeah." And I went, "Like, you're the person who just won that, like the Australian landscape photography?" Yeah. And I went, "Mate." And it was just something that struck me about the sort of the humbleness somehow of it, that here's this person top of her game calling this little nobody, and I kind of went, mate, that's just wonderful. And I suppose it was that sense of integrity that drew me, that was bigger than the images, because the images weren't actually that attractive, quite frankly, to me at that point.
Yeah, sure.
And I just thought, shit, man, I can learn something from this person. So for me, that a depth is critical for me to grow. And if I'm growing from another, it must come from a place of depth,
Yeah.
or else it's kind of superficial schlock, and it's easy to do, but you're not growing, you know. So yeah, growing is a really big part of it, Adam. Growing and becoming a bigger human being, becoming something bigger than yourself that you are now. I can't see life being of any other purpose than that.
Yeah.
So if you're not growing, you're actually not even plateauing, mate. You're sort of backsliding because you're not going forward. You know what I mean? So if your art is not, if my daughter loves the violin. I've got two daughters, and she loves the violin. She's 10 years old, and every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, when she starts a new piece, we have this absolute all fall down moment where it's just everything goes to pot, and it's happened so many times that we've actually now got a saying between ourselves that you're growing now, don't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely, at those times where struggle is right in your face and it's hard, that you actually know you're growing, that you don't grow from smiles, you grow actually generally from tears, and there's nothing else. So those moments where you really are up against the wall is probably the time when you're actually going to make a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And if you just persist and you just believe in that, that'll take you to the next place. It really will. It certainly happened like that for me, so I can only talk for myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. There'll be many people out there today in the audience, I think, they're all in different places in their photographic journey. And I can remember maybe 18 months or a year into my own journey and being introduced to, some I suppose, more conceptual style imagery and completely rejecting it, just saying like, that's not for me. I don't really like it. I don't understand it. I just want to go out at sunrise and sunset and get the most incredible pink and red skies. And look, for me at that particular point, that was all I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I started questioning myself well, in actual fact, it wasn't until I started losing the joy in that. You know, that wasn't as exciting. And I thought, well, what more is there if it's not about bright, beautiful skies? And look, if it is for bright, beautiful skies for anyone at home, then absolutely keep doing that while there's a joy in it. But it was for me, once that joy sort of disappeared and I started looking for other things, and then I had the luxury of having some incredible mentors. Ricardo de Cunha was very encouraging in saying, look, mate, just if you're not feeling it, then start looking within. Start finding something within to inspire you. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. But I just want to say for the people at home, look, if you don't, I guess, enjoy Clayton's work, just sort of sit back and enjoy. And later down the track, you're probably going to come back to this and think, wow, you know, that was something really important in my journey, you know, starting to look who I am and then trying to create work based on, you know, that emotion within. It's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. And you know, I'll go a step further and just you know, I've been a meditation practitioner for 20 years.
Sure.
And if I didn't mention it, I do a practice called heartfulness meditation. It's a free thing. It's wonderful. And I recommend anyone who's really wanting to go beyond the technicalities of their camera, engage in something like that, something soft, something that's allowing you to go within. And it's not a cerebral thing. It actually comes into a feeling thing, you know. And if it's a cerebral thinking thing, it's not the point, because that you've done for the last 40 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
This is something else, and you need to go to something else, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to go to something else in our photographic journey. So then you just must be doing something else as well, whether it's a practice of meditation. I do it every morning, and it just gives you a sense of self. Because if you, as opposed to looking outside all the time, and that's really crucial at the beginning of the journey, you must look outside, because if you don't know how to change the gears in the car, man, you're not gonna drive it. So you've got to be doing that. You've got to get that right. But at some point, stop looking at the gear lever, man. You got to know. You got to trust that that's how it works, and you got to start going within, going right now. Where do I want to go with this car? Where is this car going? And that's where you start going into the soft aspects of yourself, and the you know, people who don't want to use spiritual words because we get petrified of these things in the Western world. But you know, at the subconscious or the superconscious, you want to start accessing, because that's actually your birthright. Those are things that are actually aspects of yourself that you can access should you want to. And some people don't want to, and that's all good and well. But actually, you're sort of setting yourself short, because there's actually a whole wealth of yourself that's available to learn and therefore to express, should you want to. You know, so I strongly recommend anyone who wants to go to the next phase of their artistic, and I don't just say photographic, artistic journey, you have to go to another place within yourself. Or you're really just going to be tonking out the same tonk, you know. There's not going to be any change there, you know.
Yeah, interestingly, on that same subject, often at workshops, I'll get the question, or often I'll get the emails. Adam, I've been, you know, taking photos for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, whatever it might be, and I don't feel that I've found my signature style yet. You know, and I think the biggest key to actually finding your signature style is finding the work or finding the inspiration within your own soul, because your style, I find those that have the deepest style or the most recognizable style often are the ones that are producing the work consistently from their own voice, or they've found their own voice all of a sudden, and then it shines, doesn't it? It shines through that style. Absolutely.
So should I share a screen and show you this one quote that talks to exactly what we're chatting about? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, please do that. Please do that, mate.
Cool. So let's go with this one here, and tell me if you can see that. You see that there, Adam?
I can, mate. Absolutely.
I'm going to read it out because I think it's worth hearing if people might just be listening to this conversation rather than watching it. So it goes like this, and this is a quote from a man called Henry Peach Robinson. And it's worth saying that this was written or said in 1896. We got tired of the sameness of the exquisiteness of photography. Why? because the photograph told us everything about the facts of nature and left out the mystery. Now, however hard-headed a man may be, he cannot stand too many facts. He needs a little mystification as a relief. And for me, that's it, man, right there. You know, if we can keep looking at that sunset and we can keep doing that forest, and
Yeah.
if we're, you know, it just seems to be without a depth, without some. There needs to be an aspect of mysticism that comes into the image, or it's not going anywhere for me. That's just my little thing.
I mean, I agree, mate. You can take so many, as you said, rainforests or rivers or sunsets, but unless you infuse it with some of your own soul, it will only ever be a rainforest, a river, or a sunset, won't it? It'll just be literally exactly, replicating a photocopy of whatever it was. But, the majority of humans can already see what is, but they can't see how you feel about that particular place or situation, or, that's
That's
what
right.
I'm.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably worth saying something here as well, Adam. This fella here, Henry Peach Robinson.
Yep.
A lot of us who are photographers know very little about the history of photography. It's sort of a tragic recurrence that
Yes.
most of us don't know a damn thing about the history of photography, and which is completely in contrast to those who are artists. They get into art school and they learn all about this history stuff before they actually start developing anything in relation to they're using the tools of the trade. It's complete invertendo. And I think it's really important for us to realize that when photography started, there was a huge school. In fact, it was the majority school that were pictorialists.
Uh-huh.
Pictorialism was, and that is that what that really essentially means. And there's a lot of people who are listening here that will have far better academic qualification to talk than me. But my understanding of it is that pictorialism really is trying to express, and it doesn't matter how. It's just expressing,
Yeah.
so that you're actually getting a feeling across to the people that are reviewing the work. So it isn't hung up on technicalities. It's not a rigidity. Whatever it takes, you do. And so I'm a absolute fan of the pictorialist school. Unfortunately, it got absolutely annihilated. And ironically, Ansel Adams was a real pictorialist, and then he and Edward Weston and a whole lot of guys, just Stieglitz, and they basically turned their guns on the pictorialism movement and shot it down in a hail of bullets and created the F-64 group, which were absolutely hung up on sharpness of image.
Yeah.
And for the next 80 years, that essentially was the long and short of what photography is. It has come to be known like, oh, no, that's not real. That's not real photography.
Yeah.
And that was until the last 15 years, that was what photography was. And very, very fortunately, and I think it's got a lot to do with Photoshop, that and the modern camera's ability to do sort of things like multiple exposure, and people have actually moved back to that pictorialism style. So I think that's a really important thing to mention right at the front here, because people tend to think that what I'm doing is new, and it's absolutely not. It was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got an interesting theory that I often wonder about. The invention of the camera way back when seems to coincide with this incredible explosion in expressionism in the traditional arts, in the painting world. And I often wonder whether, the job of the painter way back when was to record the scene, because there was no camera. But then all of a sudden the camera came around and could do a faster, better, quicker, sort of a job of that same task. And then, so the painters were left with wondering, how am I going to make myself significant? And all of a sudden, a lot of them seem to have found expressionism of some sort of self, through all those different styles, romanticism, abstract expressionism, impressionism and the like. And I wonder if we're now sitting at a similar stage, because the camera has become so accessible to the masses, that now that beautiful, realistic, literal interpretation of a landscape is relatively easy to come by. You only have to look at Instagram and see how incredible some of those literal interpretations are. And is that now an opportunity for a lot of us to then make ourselves more relevant by self-expression once again.
Yeah, that's right. And the truth of the matter is, it's easy to take photographs, mate. I mean, we hate to hear this. A lot of us
Yeah.
who are professionals, they can't stand that someone saying that out loud. But photography is damn easy, man. Let's not beat around the bush here. There's nothing hard about it. So, you know, and that's been the case since Box Brownie. You know, really, it's not hard, and that is exactly why, you know, we have to acknowledge that. Like, there's this phrase I'm going to keep coming back to: "What's in the way is the way," and that's just a truth. It's just an undeniable truth. Is that you know, you just hold your camera up, and if you put an order, you get a fairly decent image. You can blow that up. You might even sell it. You know, it's not that hard. Yes, you can take it to a whole lot of different places, but actually, in the first instance, it's not a hard thing. So we need to start moving then beyond. You know, I always think about painters. I mean, have you ever heard of a painter that gets a little bit sort of stiff thinking about their brush? I mean, that doesn't happen. You know, they don't get all excited by the idea of, whoa, look at this paintbrush, man, look what it can do, and shit. And then, you know, his mate will come and go, yeah, but look, I've got this one, look what it can do. Oh, man, I'm getting rid of my first one. Oh, I want one of them. You know, this is what we do as photographers. We get so caught up in the actual thing of acquisition that we actually go down this rabbit hole of technicalities of the camera itself, when it's just the tool, man. Get over it. You know, and that is really important, to move beyond the technicalities. You know, once you can find the gear stick, start driving the car, you know, and that's really important for me. So that might fly in the face of a few people, and I'm sort of happy to stand up and put my head above the parapet and say a few things which we don't want to hear, but it's really important for us to hear, especially if we want to grow, you know, because growth means a little bit of eating the bitter pill, you know. That's just how it works. And that was what happened to me. And look, it's probably worth me saying one more thing about my journey is that this is where, maybe I'll show you a picture. Right? This is where it all started. I mean, this is the first image I have I even got it here? I mean, yeah, the first picture that I actually made was selfie, man, in 2007, you know, and I suppose that exactly says it all, you know. That's so I used to live in London for a long time, and that's literally my D40X, man, taking a picture of me, and this is that's the second image I ever made, and I suppose that comes down to where it's gone from there. It's all gone, you know, down the road of investigating myself, you know. And but I've done the yards of doing the straight shots, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there we go. Figure eight pull.
Figure eight pull, yeah, yep. I lived in the Royal National Park. I actually had a gallery in Bundina for 2.5 years.
Yeah. And
you know, if you ever want to destroy yourself as a creative photographer, just get yourself a gallery. Sorry, but you know, that's the truth. Is, you know, I reckon every single person listening here who might have their own gallery is going, mate, he's onto something, because you've got real estate on the wall, and you put stuff on the wall, and
bills to pay.
And that wall's taken, mate. You can't grow. You just got to keep tonking out, because people are going to buy that work.
Whatever sells, yeah, absolutely, mate. And for the people at home that are a bit challenged by some of the things that we're bringing up, then it's part of the growth thing. You know, if you're not getting challenged, then, as Clayton said, you're maybe not growing. But I also understand there's people at different parts of the journey. So just keep in mind that if you're happy with where you're currently at, then stay, keep doing that. But as soon as you start losing the joy or losing the excitement, then start to expand and see what else is out there. And it can be really incredible where you can go with it.
Yeah, that's quite right, Adam. I can be a little bit blunt at times, but that actually is what happened to me. So I had the gallery, and I was making all these shots, and this is started getting a bit more soft.
Here we go, yeah.
Yeah, but I started started getting really bored, mate. I got really, really bored. Jeez, I think this might be the original. You can still see the car I haven't taken out.
That's beautiful.
Rubbish. Anyway, yeah, so this is when I started getting bored with what I was doing. So I just started whacking color into it, you know, and just going, God, I've got to create something else. And unfortunately, I didn't have anywhere to show them, because all the walls were taken up with the stuff, all the stuff they would sell, you know, like you know, Eagle Rock, and all the stuff would sell, and you know, so you keep putting it out there, and you get locked in the cycle of just tonking it out, you know, and yeah, I just think it's the most destructive thing, and I'd say that's for any printmaker. So anyone who does prints of any sort, whether they're a printmaker or they're a photographer, involves running prints, meaning that you can just run as many as you want, is that you get locked into this paralysis where you actually can't grow because you can't challenge yourself. You can't go beyond yourself. You just have to keep putting it up. And then you start, I found a lot of, and I was doing this as well, is you start self-justifying.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, oh, no, well, you know, I don't care what others think. I'm interested in my customers and all this stuff. But actually, what you're really not engaging with is the possibility that you're bored and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that we do go beyond ourselves, you know, at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, so I had the gallery, and I was going around the world doing, you know, amazing pictures to impress people on Facebook, you know, and doing all these, you know, grand shots to make people jealous, and people were admiring my stuff, and that's great. But what really, yeah, so what actually happened that stopped me in my tracks was my daughter got diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. My first daughter, and we got we I just couldn't do that anymore. There was just no way that I could be away, and it just it wasn't part of the plan, and I had to just deal with what was in front of me. And what actually happened for the next 4 years, Adam, is I never shot the horizon. Actually, I realized this. I actually stopped shooting the horizon, and I only turned the camera down. So for the next quite a long time, all I would do is actually just shoot macro, and all in my immediate vicinity. And this is quite an important thing to those who might be listening, because a lot of people don't have the ability, the means, or the way to go traveling to all these fabulous destinations. They see other photographers doing on Facebook.
Yeah.
The fact is that actually, if you can just go absolutely local and make local look as if it's exotic, you've gone to a new place. You've challenged yourself. You've gone beyond what's expected, and it's allowed you to grow. And that's really what I did. Is I couldn't go abroad, so I just started going really, really. And I suppose it was an expression of what was happening with me. I was going within because I didn't know how to deal with what my daughter was going through. So I was, you know, diving within, and trying to find what was going on. And yeah, so that's how a lot of this journey began. It began with the thing that was in the way. You know, that was the thing that was in the way, and I had to somehow make it work. You know, because I love the photography. I love the creative process of doing it. So I had to keep doing it. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe I'll open a few more images. Shall
Please
I do
do.
that?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, this was Antarctica. I went to Antarctica as well, which was absolutely awesome. But this is an important image. It's nothing to talk of at all, but it's really important because this is a real turning point for me. I went on a workshop with Jackie. In fact, it might have been just after what I spoke about earlier. I went to Milford Sound with Jackie and Mike Langford, Jackie Rankin, and this was a really important moment for me, because these ripples that are here was the first time I put myself into an image. So I was chucking rocks into the water, and it was a real light bulb moment. And it's could have just gone by the wayside, but it was absolutely central to what was about to happen and where I was about to go with my work. And I didn't realize that I actually could include myself in the work in some manner. And what I'm even doing now talks to this shot. So, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, incredible.
yeah. So that's quite important. But yeah, look, so you know, I did. I was still doing the pretty pictures, and this is in Antarctica. I had the good fortune of going to Antarctica and taking photographs there, and you know, it was absolutely wonderful place. A difficult place because you can't really describe it to anyone. It's a bit resolution. it's a difficult place to share with others because if they haven't been there, it's almost like you're talking about Mars. You might as well be because it's quite odd. So it's a lonely place, and it's lonely when you come back because you can't really, all talk about it. There's so few people that have gone that you don't really get that opportunity to natter about stuff.
Do you think
Uh,
you would depict that differently, a series from Antarctica, if you were to go back again?
yeah, I don't even think I'd go, Adam, if I'm honest. I think it would be, yeah, look, I definitely would, mate. I definitely would. And it would definitely involve the multiple exposure technique that I've been doing. And it's probably worth mentioning that that's something that everyone can do. It's in all your cameras, multiple exposure. It's in the Canon and the Nikons at least, and
Yeah,
Fujifilm.
yeah. Do you
And
feel
it's
like,
layering image upon image. And I suppose what the beauty of that is that you don't know what's going to come out.
yeah,
You don't know what's going to result. And that's where that beauty, that idiosyncrasy, that came from film. In the film, in the darkroom, things would just happen magically, and you'd kind of go, "Shit, I didn't expect that." And that's where the artistry came.
yeah,
It's in spite of yourself, stuff is happening, and that's actually what really has prompted me to go from things like this, to I'll bring up. Started going down this road. Yeah.
mm, yeah. I think this is roughly around the time when I first discovered your work, Clayton.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, magic.
So yeah, these are my daughters, and it's a pity I've got my big fat name here, but I couldn't find one that didn't have one of those on them. But yeah, this is obviously all composited imagery. So I'm actually creating these images. The background's there, but I've actually shot the person separately, and
Magic.
I suppose trying to express, mate. Trying to find something new. That's what I was doing. So I was just doing everything. Just trying to find something new, something that worked. Um, and this was quite an important one. This is the next sort of major um, turning point for me. Is this image here? I called it the Hatter's Exit, and it's basically me walking away. And I didn't realize that I was doing this at the time. It was a subconscious thing. I just made this image. The
Mm,
background image I actually made 2 years prior, and then I put myself into the image. This is a selfie. Um, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just had this inclination, this sense to just do it. And that is been what's been happening in the last 3-4 years is just go with the feeling, and just go with the feeling, and you'll probably discover what's going on. You'll work it out. Your conscious mind will catch up with your subconscious.
yeah.
And so I made this image myself, dropped myself into the scene, and made it look all tintypey and stuff. And I actually realized what I was doing. I was actually making an image of me walking away from the convention of photography.
Oh,
So
wow.
so
Interesting.
that's what this image actually is. Yeah.
Interesting. Like, I guess I call it, keep your eyes open. How important is it for you just to use your intuition as you're creating and keeping your eyes open and the possibilities open to that image taking a pathway or a direction that you weren't quite envisioning when the process started? They often develop as you go, don't they? Or do they?
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Adam. I've got to the point now that if my mind is chattering while I'm out in the field, I'm going to stop there and then and just put the camera aside and quieten that mind right down. Because what's happening is that chattering mind you're hearing is your ego. You may not know it, but that's what's happening. That
Mm,
chattering is your ego. It's all your baggage from all those thoughts and all those experiences and all those emotions you've had over the last lifetime that are coming up, and they're coming into your field of view, and they're getting in the way of you accessing a new aspect of yourself. So you've got to quieten that mind right down, because what you're trying to do, what I'm trying to do when I'm in the field, is I'm trying to feel. Because what's happening here is the feeling is a thing which is a subliminal thing. It's not, it doesn't use the machinery of the everyday. It doesn't use the machinery of thought. It doesn't use the machinery of the mind. It uses feeling, because that's how you know that it's yours, because it's a feeling and you feel like, I'm attracted to that. I don't know why. It doesn't matter. Go
mm,
for it. Go for it. Shoot that thing, because that's important to you. So that's what I do now. I'm only photographing what is of interest, what I'm feeling. And I don't know why, and I don't actually want to work out why. because I find that if I do work out why, I'm going to try and replicate it in some rote fashion, some template, some formulaic thing that's essentially going to, but that's driven by an outward imperative, like a financial imperative or something like that. I want this thing to be the essential thing that it is, and I don't want to routinize it, if you know what I mean. So I'm really, really conscious when I'm out that I might take no photographs at all.
Yeah.
I really have no inclination. There's nothing grabbing me, and that's okay. That's fine. I'm just going to keep on going. And tomorrow I'm going to take my camera again. I'm going to go walk my dog, and that thing's going to grab me, and I'm going to shoot 30 frames. And I don't know why, but those 30 frames may be really useful to me in 3 weeks' time. They may be really useful to me when I get home because I'm fully inspired. I can see the image in my mind, but I might not be. But I'm just honoring that aspect of myself which my conscious mind doesn't own, which it doesn't lay claim to. So I think that's super, super critical for my work, is to be intuitive,
100%. And I find sometimes if you're too rigid and try too hard, then often it becomes more difficult. And then when you look back with an open mind at the shots that you've captured anyway, you might have already captured the feeling or the emotion that you were trying to get, but you were just a little bit blinded to the fact that, or not open to the fact that it wasn't exactly what you envisioned in the first time.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Adam. Absolutely. And things just happen completely by chance, don't they?
They do.
I don't know if this happens to your Photoshop. Photoshop's a real buggy thing these days, I've realized. Like, for example, now I'm clicking on different images and it's all sticking on the one image. Have you seen that?
Oh, right. I might flick on a couple.
A really buggy version of Photoshop. I've got to say, I actually even canned I'm sorry, I'm going to bag Photoshop from out here, but I actually even, here we go. I actually canned my 2020 because I was just so buggy that I just actually got rid of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway, this is created in camera. This is the first multiple exposure image that I thought worked for me. This was shot about 4 years ago in Kangaroo Valley, and it's all in camera, multiple exposure. And when I shot it, I mean, it's worth saying to people that the thing about multiple exposure work is that 90% will fail. Really important. And that's, so when you get something to work, it is like an absolutely graceful gift given to you. You just grab it, you go, my God. And I suppose it's quite akin to those guys who are working in the, gun cotton in the studios, in the 1890s. If you got the bloody tintype that worked, a plate that worked, you were just so stoked. So there's that beautiful idiosyncrasy that we've lost with digital photography that I was really trying to regain. And I was so grateful to this group, this Arcanum group that I was part of with Jackie. And a lot of us were working on this sort of stuff. So we were inspiring each other. And yeah, when things like this happen, it's so pleasant,
Yeah, absolutely.
So then I started doing things where I was almost constructing. I mean, this is also in camera multiple exposure. That's probably a little bit overexposed if I'm honest. I'm a little saturated, but this is actually sort of finding things immediately around me and actually layering them in camera while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And then that started me down this where I'm sort of at the moment. This is the last 2 years of what I've been doing. I live on Gundungurra country, which is the Southern Highlands. It incorporates the Blue Mountains. And because I was in Africa from basically from the 1650s, I had no idea. My daughter did a project at school. We had to work it out, and turns out my family's been in Africa since the 1650s, right? So I was in Australia 10 years. I had no idea where I was. I really had no resonances of this place, and I just started wondering, like, I live in a cold place, and I started wondering, like, how did the people who lived here before, how did they survive? And I started asking all these questions. Who were these people, and what did they do? And I started going to the library and trying to find out about, who are the people, who are the Gundungurra, what were they about? I started going to the local land council and chatting to the people and trying to, basically what was happening is I was making images again that I felt didn't actually reflect. I'll show you a couple of images here. That Kangaroo Valley is nice, but in some ways it, and this is again, hell of a saturated. I don't know why these images are saturated, but they're nice, but for me, they almost didn't talk to, there was something missing about them. Didn't quite know what it was. And I had an exhibition down in Melbourne, the other art fair, and when I got back, I started really thinking, what was it that was missing? And I kind of felt that it was actually the Aboriginal component, the first Australians. I mean, the people that lived here for 200 generations. I mean, that's a long-lasting legacy of just essence that I didn't know anything about. So I thought, I've got to find out about this stuff. So I started going to the land council and meeting people, going to people, and trying to get a grip with what it is that this place is about, and try to find a device that would actually put them into the landscape without putting faces in. I was trying to avoid faces. So I found these carvings that the people would make, and I started shooting the carvings and started dropping them into the images. So I could actually, they used to carve the trees. A whole lot of people, especially in New South Wales, Aboriginal people used to carve the trees where someone would die.
Okay.
It'd be like a totem, like where people would die, they'd be around their tombstone. So I started incorporating that into the work, and with the blessing of the people, you know, I'd go to the land councils and talk to people and tell them what I'm doing and ask their opinion, and yeah, people would say, yeah, well, you got to go there then, mate, because that's an important spot, and so it's so forthcoming. And it was just basically someone willing to go, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a clueless white boy. I don't know where I am, but you know this place, you know.
Yeah.
So would you help me understand? And people were forthcoming, mate. They were really helpful and you know, for the most part. And so yeah, I started working on these images. And this one I called "What Is and What Will Always Be." And if you can work it out, there's actually these carvings of the grave sites, you know, on the trees and the grave site that's been layered on top of the church. And so it's probably the most political image I ever made in the series.
Yeah, it looks like almost looks like an eye in the center of that frame.
Yeah, it does. It almost got that yeah. Oh, this is more later stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, mate.
Yeah, this is what I've been doing more. So what's that? So where it's actually moved from there, from doing those images that were very strongly First Nations driven images, I almost tacked back a little bit because I just thought that it was the essence that I was really trying to express. And I was maybe had gone, and it's always the case I've noticed with any work I do, is that you go too far and then you tap it back and you come to some sort of medium. Like you and I were talking about before this conversation began, Adam, it's all about balance, you know?
Yeah.
For me, that's like, that is what all the images are about. It's about finding a balance. And so I suppose that's what's happened. I've tried to incorporate that spirit of place in these later images that I'm making now. And I've even, so this is not very long ago. This is actually made this year.
Yeah, it's beautiful, mate. Absolutely. I think you've captured, well, at least to me, it communicates that spirit of place. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4. This is burned bark here
Yep.
on the south coast in the last bushfires. Gum. So there's probably about 6 images there layered on top of each other. Obviously now I'm not. I don't get too caught up in whether it's in camera or not nowadays. I'm just trying to express what I'm expressing. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, it reminds me of bushwalking as a kid, you know, exploring the trees and the gum trees and the squiggly barks and all that kind of good stuff.
oh, that's really good to hear. That's kind of awesome, mate. So I'll just show you the end. This is kind of what I'm working on now. It's gone a little bit whimsical, and I'll show you that image there. is actually behind me. So I'll actually show you what's heading towards the final piece. It's certainly not there yet, but
Okay.
it's something. And yeah, so it's going towards this whimsy. I don't know why, and I don't really want to question it either. I'm just going to go with it.
No, it
Just
works.
yeah, just allow it to be, you know.
And what dictates the color palette that you're using? I mean, there's this sort of somber blue tones in the background, which I see in a lot of your work, even from way back when. And then you've
Yeah,
got those bright,
yeah.
vibrant reds as well.
There's a strange thing that it's always happened to me, Adam, is that when it rains, I get really melancholic, and it's a beautiful feeling, and I love it. I really kind of it can become quite indulgent, but I actually just love that sense of melancholy, and that blue talks to me, that melancholy
Mm,
somehow,
it
and I
does.
always remember, and it still happens to me today, that after it's been raining a lot, when the sun comes out, there's a definite sense of sadness that comes over me. It's the oddest thing, but and I've never really found anyone else that does it. I just always thought everyone felt like that, you know. But as I've asked a few people around, I've realized that
Well, it's
it's my shit.
interesting. I mean, I find a great sense of comfort from the rain. I love the rain. There's nothing better than lying under in a warm bed, you know, when it's pouring down with rain on a tin roof, mate. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's
I really
right.
love it.
Yeah. So that sense of melancholy, I'd love to get across in the work, and you're right about that, Blue. That has come through a lot. This image is called Strange Fruit, by the way. Strange Fruit, after that song, the Nina Simone song, you know, with the hangings in the south of the
Okay.
US, the
Okay.
river comes. And, you know, this is another one that's actually alongside me. I'll show you in a sec. This is a entirely constructed landscape. Almost all of these
Yep.
are entirely constructed, so there's no sky involved here at all. There's no sun. There's none of that stuff. I'm just completely constructing stuff. All photographic. It's worth saying, this is all photographic work, and I think if anything, it's probably what will be the thing that people will be intrigued by is that you said you realize that's a photograph, and people I'm kind of hoping might go, that's not a photograph, you know, and that might be the conversation starter for works that are on a gallery wall, for example.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've taken something that doesn't, you know, very abstract in the fact that it doesn't represent a literal landscape, but then turned it into a representation of a fairly traditional landscape in this scenario. It's got a bit of a cave art style to it as well.
Yeah, right, and yeah, that probably talks to that trip I went up north. I went to quite a few yeah, cavey scenes, you know. There's another one made recently, and this I'm sort of paying homage to First Nations people, the emu in the sky, and yeah, things like that. And there's so this is yeah, Norton Bay fig. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's probably about 12, 15 images here
Yeah.
layered, and um, and they're beautiful resolution. You know, the medium format images, so they're
Hmm.
just gorgeous. When they are printed, they're just exquisite.
I'm
Uh,
interested in the pattern of the leaf and the surrounding blue in the foreground. If I stand back from this image, it looks like a big set of lips there.
oh
Um,
wow, cool,
yeah.
really cool. Yeah, that's one image, by the way. This is actually one image down here. I probably lifted the blue a little, but actually it's in the Royal National Park. I went back for a little visit and yeah, photographed that. That just was next to me. I was lying in the middle of the river. There was a rock. And I was lying on my back for probably half an hour, 40 minutes, actually trying to sort of work out where I'm going. Where do I go next? What am I doing? You know, what am I doing? And that was when this whole idea of this series I'm working on right now came to me. And it was this leaf that really prompted it, actually.
Sure.
That leaf, in fact, there's another one here, this one here. Uh, this here, as you're seeing, this moon is actually just a bit of lichen on the rock, and it looked just like a moon. And it just struck me right then that, man, that's what it is. It's a whimsy. It's the whimsy of the whole thing, you know. Um, that's so it's often just one little thing that's pushing me into the next place, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting chatting through this body of work and going right back from the beginning and coming right through, because I'm in a similar place at the moment where I feel that my next body of work, which I haven't even started yet, is going to be the culmination of all the skills and all the influences that I've ever had over my entire journey. Do you think I can see the whimsy from some of your previous series, and then obviously the multiple exposure from the Indigenous series, and they're also kind of coming together. Is that something that you think is generally fairly normal for most photographers to keep infusing all their influences as they push forward?
Yeah, look, I think for those that are interested in growing, absolutely. And generally, photographers that are still photographers after, you know, the first 10,000 images or 20,000
Yeah,
images are those who are actually interested in some sort of evolution, some sort of growth. And for those, I'd agree. Yeah, they are still referencing, because all we are is the sum parts of everything that's gone before, and there's not that's just who we are, you know.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
we have nothing else to reference, and especially if we are referencing from within, that's all we've got, you know. So absolutely, and especially artists, you know, that permanently wanting to pay homage to everything they've done before, not in some egotistical, pretentious fashion, but just because that's who you are. So actually, when I'm making this image here, that's really important for me, that expresses me in totality. So
yeah,
whereas, you know, I could go back to those images of the Royal National Park, those pretty pictures. And the reason those pictures for me are superficial and shallow is because they don't illustrate the whole me. And there's darkness in me, and there's doubt in me, and there's whimsy in me, and there's a spiritual sense to me, and there's all and I want all that stuff to come out there.
yeah,
And I want it to be in every image, you know. I don't want it just to be, you know, and that's why these images of beautiful sunsets and stuff hold limited appeal, because they hold your attention for 2 minutes, 2 seconds or 3 seconds on Instagram, and it's gone. And the person that just flicked through past the image probably won't think about it again. If we're honest with one another, it's gone. So, you know, if you're expressing something more complex, which is more akin to the human condition, then it needs to include all that stuff. It needs to include the happiness, the lightness, the softness, the sadness, all these things, because then it makes us engage at a deeper level. And you don't know why you're engaged. You don't know why you're intrigued. You may not even like it, but you're intrigued by it. And I would suggest you're intrigued by it because it's expressing a human condition, which is probably not very far off yours.
yeah.
So yeah, that's the my little spiel there.
Oh, I love that, mate. I love it. I can see all the
Yeah,
different influences from all your past work all coming together, all those skill sets.
that's right. And even these, like I thought, the water drops is quite a recurring theme as well. You know, I thought I'd bring those in because that's where a lot of this journey started, from that water drop. You know,
Yeah,
so you often see those in there, and I mean, there's a bit more reason to that, but yeah, that's it. So this is where I'm going, mate. So maybe should I stop sharing and
yeah.
show
Stop
you?
sharing, and we can have a look in the studio, mate, and tell us a little bit about the process after the photo was created digitally.
Yeah, sure. So look, I do print. I print. I've got a 44-inch Epson next to me, and it's a third-hand thing, and it's got wonderful Les Walkling profiles on it, and I don't want to sell it for that reason. And I have been with this body of work to a gallery in Western Australia, who looked at the work, and they wanted it. They liked what I was doing. They kept a couple of works, but they wanted them much bigger. So that was my next challenge. And like I always like saying, what's in the way is the way. That's my challenge. My problem is I've got a printer. I don't want to spend $25,000 getting a new printer, new profiles. What do I do? So I started working on a manner in making things much bigger. And I just walked back here because Adam didn't know at the beginning of this call how big this work was. I'll just show you how big it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the size of the work. So it's 75 inches by 60 inches. And it's a collage of prints. And what I've done is I've actually mounted it to the board. And this is certainly not finished. It's worth mentioning because I came to the studio this morning, and this surround that I'd put on yesterday afternoon, which was a deep, dark grey, has gone to this magenta puce color that really now is my next, that's what's in the way today. That's got to be resolved in some manner because that's bloody hideous. So I've got to do something about that. And I've got to, obviously there's nothing been done to the surrounds at the top there, but I've put beeswax all over it. Beeswax is called encaustic. It's a beautiful thing. It's been around for 2,000 years. encaustic, and encausticos means to burn in. It's a Greek word, and it basically you're using heat and beeswax, and you're putting it onto the work. And one of the reasons I did that was to get a sense of mysticism. There's a beautiful mystical feel that comes from it, because there's almost like a foggy feel to it, and I like what that did to my work. So I started working with that, and only recently I've been starting to work with the cold wax as well. So that's been interesting to work with, and that doesn't involve heat. That's obviously comes straight out of the can. It's a bit more expensive, but it does allow you to do things which hot wax doesn't allow you to do. But yeah, I still print on beautiful papers. That's printed to awagami, which is a beautiful Japanese mulberry pith. So I'm still wanting to print to the highest quality I can. And I'll go as far as to say, Jackie always said something which I think holds such truth, is that you haven't got a photograph till you've printed it. Yeah. There is no such thing. Once you've got the print in your hand, you have a photograph you've made. And that is absolutely true for everything I do. I am going to print it, So yeah. So this one here, I've gone and done my thing. I'll probably hold it a bit closer because there's actually
please do.
Can't see. And I've gone. How much of that you can see, but there's
fair chunk.
Quite industrial on this thing. So I've actually even got things like the nail plates that you use at the end of planks.
Oh yeah, I can see them.
Yeah, kind of. The point is that it's a constructed landscape. So I thought, I had this issue with the surround and the top. Don't even look at the top. There's a lot of work needs to be done there. But I'm sort of happy up to here, and I sort of thought, geez, you've got the surround. You have to make the surround talk to the work. It can't just be like this. Make a bigger thing. It's got to actually be, and it's got to take the work a step further. And I thought, how can I make it go there? And it just happened to me in meditation one day. I thought, it's constructed, mate. What you're doing is constructed landscape. So go industrial, go constructed, use construction materials, why not? So I've actually got a whole lot of kind of textures, that layers in here that are very much using construction materials to imprint into the wax, so I thought I might take the work a step further, as opposed to just being a superficial additive. And then what I've done is I've actually taken, this is earth that I've got from Gundabooka National Park, which is in Burke area. And this is actually the red earth that I've actually picked up there. And in fact, my kids did. It's worth saying my kids are probably my biggest inspiration. It's just amazing what they've put me onto. They keep calling me over and saying, "Oh, look how red this earth is down." They're collecting it up and doing their own thing, and I'm loving it. And so we're sort of vibing off each other. And it's that kind of lightness that they bring to my work, which is just invaluable, mate. Like we were talking earlier, Adam,
Oh, absolutely.
It's just dire, mate.
Absolutely. Yeah, we mentioned that, didn't we, Clayton? That the kids just have this freedom, and I guess they don't have any inhibitions like we do, or they don't have any preconceptions of what is good, so to speak, and they just have this freedom of creating, which is really, for me as an artist, is a place where I'm trying to get to. And I think that's kind of, we go through life and we're really free in the beginning, and then we go through all this education and whatnot, and we get all these, different constraints placed on us, and what is good, and even social media these days will define and sort of tell you what is good and what is not. If I put up some of my more crazy, darker work, it'll get 5 or 10 likes. And if I put up a beautiful, glossy landscape, it'll get, a couple of hundred. But it doesn't mean that the darker stuff is maybe not even more valuable or more authentic. And what I see in the kids, as you just touched on there, or my little boy, who I've done some art with recently, is he doesn't care about social media likes. He doesn't care about the rules of art. He's just got this freedom to throw paint down and scribble and pick up his favorite color, and it's just on instinct, and it's such an underrated, beautiful thing. But I think as artists, if we can get to that level, which you're getting, you're sort of on that journey yourself, Clayton, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, mate. I mean, we've almost got to let go of what's gone before to enter into a new, and that's the big thing about it. I think Ben Quilty actually said, the artist has got to be absolutely egotistical and at the exact same time be utterly humble that they are just a vehicle. So and you know that I just took such sort of inspiration from that. The ego's got to know that it can do it, but
Yes.
that's enough. Beyond that, you're starting to get into a sort of egotism that is debilitating. But it's got to know that it can do it, but it's also got to know that it's another aspect of yourself that you're essentially channeling, and that you have no control over that, and your ego and your intellect and your, you know, all these things are, the conscious mind is just not a part of.
Yeah.
You've got to allow, you've got to open, and that does mean letting go of judgment, letting go of self-doubt, and just bloody doing. And I, you know, I keep talking about Jackie a lot, but one of the things that in this Arcanum group that we're a part of, and for anyone who's listening, gee, if you want to take your art a step further, get into a group, get into some sort of group where you can, there's a trust that you allow yourself to be vulnerable, because you know, making good art is about being vulnerable and being willing to be vulnerable, you know, and I think that's the absolute cornerstone of moving forward, is to be vulnerable in your work. And as she always said, go play, mate, just go play, and you know, go and play. Like there's, that doesn't matter what you come back with, just have fun, you know, go and do it, and then you work out what you're doing later, and that's cool. That's absolutely cool, you know.
Yeah.
Allow
Yeah.
yourself that freedom, and that's what kids do. They just have fun, mate, you know, and we shouldn't restrict them, you know, in doing that.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And I think you know, allowing ourselves to fail, allowing ourselves to do really bad work as part of the process, and allowing that really bad work to, you know, see within it. There's always some good stuff. We learn some stuff, and sometimes even the worst stuff. You look at it in 12 months, and you think, wow, hang on a minute, there's something really in here. And if I just let it develop a little bit more, and not
Yeah,
care about what everyone thinks about it, we can really find some great places. I mean, from my own personal example, I'm creating this body of work that we talked about this morning, Clayton, which was the My Shadow series. Very dark, very lonely, isolated, heavy tones. And I often say to people at workshops, I had to wait 15 years to have the confidence and the freedom to create that body of work, because I had to be confident enough that when people tell me that they don't like it and they wish I would go back to what they expect me to do and what I was previously doing, I had to have the confidence to ignore that and just keep going, because it was work that was really important to me. And I've had so many emails. I've had a lot of positive emails about that body of work, but I've had more emails, well, not more, but more than any other body of work, saying, look, this is rubbish, and you're not creative, and use your other side of your brain, or this or that, and all this sort of negative stuff. And I just sort of think, in hindsight, I just think I must be on the right track, because, you know, it's stirring up people's emotions, and some people are hating it and some people are loving it. So I think if you're really stirring people up and on the border of failing, then you're probably doing your best work, or at least I hope I am. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's right. And you're probably doing yourself justice, you know, which is more important in the whole equation. And that's probably why I'm doing this stuff
Absolutely.
at scale and doing it so that it's really a one-off, because I know I'm not appealing to everyone, and that's okay with me. You know, I've made
Yeah.
peace with that fact. Is that I've walked down that avenue, you know, and I'm not. I've got to keep walking into the light, because it may be that that one piece is appreciated by one family or one person, and what they're going to take away from that is them growing with that work, because they might look at it more and more and more, and every time they look, or at least every year they look at it, they kind of go, it takes something away from that work, you know. So that's crucial to me, you know. It really is. It's I think that's where I want to go, is make a piece that has been made by me for that piece, and all attention to be paid to that, rather than, you know, I'm sorry to say this, but rather than lying to myself, calling myself a fine art photographer and running 100 copies of the same print, you know, I just that doesn't square with me at an integrity level. And you don't have to agree with me at all, Adam, but that's just my feeling in the matter. I needed to go to a place of a bit more integrity, and that's where getting tactile in the most literal sense was crucial to what I'm doing, because tactility and authenticity somehow, and what I do feel what's happened with the modern world is everything's become so clean and sanitized and
Perfect.
minimalistic, and and that's not where we live. We live in this harsh, brutal, messy place of spit and blood, and that's what we live in. And we have to embrace that. That's what it is. The human condition is this place of change, mix, mess. What we've just gone through, this coronavirus, none of us could have predicted that, and it's a mess. But it's actually, what did you take away from that whole experience? What have you gained? How have you grown? And if you're sitting there as a photographer going, "Gee, I've been locked down," what have you grown? That was what was in the way. How have you made it into the way? That's
Absolutely.
important for me.
Absolutely, mate. Two things I want to touch on.
Yeah.
The first one is I collect a lot of photography myself. So, and one of the, interestingly enough, I've done some workshops and spent some time with Ken Duncan, and he says one of the best ways to understand the value of a print is to collect prints yourself, because when you're dishing out your own hard-earned, you're really critical of what you find value. If you're going to pay 500, 1,000, 2,000, or even more dollars of your own hard-earned, you're going to be really critical and trying to get prints or acquire or purchase prints that you feel are really, really valuable. So through collecting myself, I now have these certain, I suppose, criteria that I see valuable within prints, and to a lot of degree I steer away from the mass-produced work, and I look for either limited editions that are relatively small, 5, 8, 10, or I'm looking for work that's had value added and personalized, like your encaustic stuff. Do you give that much thought at all? I'm sure you probably don't, but do you think there's a value add in what you do to your prints after they've been printed?
Look, there's no doubt that there was a part of the equation. It wasn't the central reason I was doing what I was doing, but it's certainly, I knew for a fact that if I was producing a one-off piece, it had to have more value, even if only to me.
Yeah.
It had to have, it's but far more investment. I mean, that work there's taken me 3 days to make. At this point, it'll probably take another 2 days to finish that. And I know that investment, someone else who will buy that work will, even if it's at a subliminal level, recognize the what they're getting. You know, yeah, that has been a part of it. There's no doubt, and I'm also a great fan of collecting artworks. Actually, one of the people who's part of our Canon group actually made the point at one meeting that, geez, hanging my own work in my own house is slightly tragic, and I kind of sat there and thought, shit. I got all that stuff on the walls, and I kind of thought about it, and I thought it is a bit tragic because it's sort of, I'm not being challenged, I'm putting up what's been done before. So I actually made a conscious effort, exactly what you're saying. I started buying artworks that were taking me to a new place. That might actually have been informing what I was doing in some manner, but actually were pressing me a little further. And if art isn't pressing you, it's basically just interior design.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and that's okay. That's all right. If you wanted to match the curtains, that's cool. But there is a place for being challenged, and I don't think we shouldn't forget that as modern humans. We've had this 70 or 80 years of absolute, of relative peace, which is just not the human condition. You know what I mean? The history of humankind is made up of pestilence, war, pandemics, and that is the human condition. And the challenge is what the human condition is. So in much the same way, we should actually embrace that, because there is nothing else. Actually, anything else is an illusion.
Yeah.
Don't have to get heavy about it, don't have to get sad about it, but just acknowledge it and go, okay, when we cry, we learn. It's all right. It's okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned in the intro, I think it was in the intro that actually when the microphone was on, I'm not sure, but I've got some cyanotype chemicals over there, and I've already tried about 8 or 10, and they're complete dismal failures. Like they're just, one of them turned completely, that incredible deep blue with no detail, and other ones have no blue with a bit of detail, and I don't know what I'm doing. But it's fun. There's something's going to come from it eventually, and it's that the handmade uniqueness, that the artist actually touched it and created it. The thing that gets me about digital printing sometimes is there's a lot of creation that goes into the Photoshop process and how we process it. But then when it comes to the actual printing of the work, it's just very consistent. And
Yeah.
there's something about that that is almost, for me, detrimental as an artist, that the printer doesn't accidentally spray a little bit of ink here or a little bit of that there, or
Yeah.
have some. It's just, it's too perfect, and I love the fact.
God, Adam, there's actually a word, and the word is serendipity. Yes, serendipity is the thing that we've lost with digital photography. It's
Yeah,
that happenstance. It's the thing that happens when you won't expect. I'll give you a classic example. I didn't get involved in film photography, but I used to have a girlfriend who was at a film school in Cape Town and in Johannesburg, actually. And I used to smoke cigarettes then, and we were in the dark room, and I wasn't thinking. I wasn't a bloody printer. I didn't know what I was doing. So I lit a fag when I was standing, in the dark room. And mate, she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, and what actually happened is the whole print solarized. I only learned that term later, but it's solarized. So the whole thing went like silver, like boom, and it was awesome. And actually, it was a print. I don't know if you follow. There's a band called Die Antwoord, and it's a South African band, and the bloke was actually a photograph of what he called himself then. And actually, it was this amazing image because he had this sunflower pitched over his head, and he had gone silver. Mate, it was just that happenstance. You could never. That just couldn't happen with your Epson 9900 tonking out the JPEG. It really. There is something. And look, mate, I've been playing as well. I'll show you. Here we go. If anyone's getting a bit excited, get yourself a Sunprint kit.
Oh, there you go. Cyanotype.
Hey, this is fun. You just go and make sun prints. You see, they're all crap, but doesn't matter. This is the point. It's getting dirty, having fun, seeing what works. So, just doing lots and lots of prints of using fun to print. These are cyanotypes, essentially. It's what they are.
Yeah, they're about 1,000,000 times better than what I was producing, mate. But we're getting there. We're having fun. The next question, and we'll wrap it up shortly. And there's some questions over here too that I'll ask as well. But the next question, if there's people at home that are thinking, wow, this looks like fun. I'd love to play with hot wax, cold wax, acrylics, oils, collaging, just having fun, just getting dirty, getting messy, and creating art the way that art's meant to be created to a certain degree, I suppose. Where do we start, Clayton? Where would you say? What do we go and get?
So if you want to get into encaustic, it's really not difficult. You just have to buy beeswax, and you just have to go down to the thrift store or go down to the tip and get yourself a $5 hot pan. That's all I've got over there, a $5 hot pan. And you get yourself the beeswax, and it's purified beeswax. It's beeswax that's been filtered, which means it's white. It's quite interesting. The beeswax is actually white when it comes out of the bee. It's absolutely clear, but it actually goes yellow because of the pollen. So you've got to take the pollen out. But anyway, that's a little bit more of a work than most people want to do. So you go buy the purified beeswax, and hey, you heat it up, man, and you slap it on, and you see what happens. And you're going to get it wrong 50,000 times. That's all right. You just keep slapping away, and you're doing your thing, and you're gouging, and you do whatever. There's online courses you can do, and I'd probably recommend you do that. There's a couple of online encaustic courses you could do. There's even one for photographers, which I did about 3 years ago. Really lovely. They give you what you need to keep on going. It doesn't guarantee you're going to come away with anything, but if you do want to go to a new place, then do that. I mean, go and do the tintype course. Go and do all these things that's going to put you way out of your comfort zone, and you're going to come away with something, even if you're not using it. Like, it's going to come back and help you somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. When you say hot pan, is it like an electric plug-in sort of fry?
Plug-in pan, man. Should I go and get it? I'll go and get it and show you. Shall I?
All right, yeah, grab it, just so we got an idea. Guys, any questions? Shoot them over there. I can see a couple there as it stands. I'll get to those in a moment, but if you've got any others.
Here we go, mate. There's my cheap $5 hot pan.
Oh, there you go.
There's my brushes inside the beeswax.
It's almost abstract.
That's all it is, mate. $5 pan.
It's almost industrial art as it is, mate. Don't heat it up again. It's an art piece.
Honestly, I mean, and the thing is, people go and look online, and they get these temperature controlled flat plates that cost you literally $800 to get. And then you go look at an artist like Jasper Jones, who was the bloke who made encaustic, actually, sort of the revival of encaustics in the 50s, I think he was. And mate, he's got exactly this. And he was still painting in the 1990s. He had exactly this, but he had nothing else. And, you know, so don't get caught up in the latest Nikon and the latest. Just bloody get the basics, man. Just learn to drive the car. As long as you can drive the Bentley. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so get into that, and with that encaustic process and the cold wax is another option, and then you got the encaustic hot wax. You can mix oils and acrylics into those, or is it just acrylics or just oils or whatever you like?
Acrylic in with encaustic. You can't do that. It's encaustic. Acrylic is actually a chemical thing, so it wouldn't work. But oils do work.
Okay.
There's a few things you probably want to do with oils. So you want to try and get a bit of the oil off. There's lots of oil in it. So that's the one thing. Cold wax is a different beast. Cold wax you can use acrylics with, and you can use oils with. And cold wax needs to take a few days to go hard, whereas hot wax is liquid. You know, I heat that pan up and it goes liquid, and then I can paint it on. And obviously, you know, when you're sitting in a restaurant, you play with the can, we pour it on the table, and you know, it hardens within seconds. You know, and that's what happens with encaustics as well. But it's got a couple of beautiful properties as well. The more you play with it, the more you work out like, geez, if I give it a bit of a buff, it actually shines like a glossy print. You know, like, whoa, I didn't realize that. Yeah. I thought it was only this matte thing, but it's not. So it's an absolute beautiful thing. But yeah, I would encourage people to go and search encaustic, because you don't just want to use beeswax. You do want to use a little bit of a Daymar. It's a hardener that goes with it, because in 40 degrees Celsius Australian summer day, you have your whole work on the floor. So there are a few things to do, but it's very doable. But it just does mean make mistakes. Be willing to make mistakes, and that's absolutely fine. That's the only way you're going to grow, you know.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. There's a couple of questions here. I'll just jump over here, guys. If you've got any other questions, shoot them now. Where was it? There was one question a bit further back. There's a lot of statements here, but one question was more about your visualization and that process of, do you often start with a work in mind, and then, you know, how much of a hard line do you take there, or do you let the image sort of talk to you and speak to you and essentially take its own journey based on, I suppose, you being the conduit for that?
Yeah, look, I think it's both. I think there are times when I can pre-visualize what I want to do, and there's one that I've actually got in mind, which in fact I started working on yesterday, which was a visualization. But the beauty of it is, once you start layering those images, that's when the idiosyncrasies come in, because that's where you let go, and you must let go, because if you want something to be bigger than you, you must let go. And allow it to go to those new places. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. I use blending modes. You know, if you've never tried blending modes in Photoshop, that's where you want to go. Blending modes does things that you know, out of your control, and can take it to beautiful places. So so it's both. Every work has not every work's got a contrivedness to it. I don't always contrive the image, but every single work has an idiosyncrasy and a serendipity. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I want that to happen. I'm trying to prompt that to happen, actually.
Yeah, guys at home, if you're looking for something to do this afternoon, get 3 or 4 or 5 images in Photoshop, lay them on top, and even change the one that's on top. So, you know, having the tree on top might be different to having the lake on top, and then change the blend modes around, then move them around and change the opacities, and you'll see that some blend modes will then interact with other blend modes, and you'll have all sorts of fun. Most of it you'll create, as we said today, most of it that you create will be, well, let's be honest, it'll be absolute rubbish. But then every now and then you'll just go bang and you'll hit something, and it'll start to guide you down that journey, and you'll eventually create something that really appeals to you. And that's kind of the fun of it, is that random nature. At least that's how I find. It can be a really rewarding process, if not a little bit frustrating sometimes.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I think where it becomes an artistry is when you actually start to understand the serendipity that happens is wonderful, and you realize it's out of your hands. But when you actually try to create that, you almost understand what's happened, then then you've actualized it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You've owned it, and then you can press on again
Yes.
into the mist where you don't know where you're going. So yeah, it's quite important to do that. So understand serendipity, understand, push on. Serendipity, understand, push on.
I think actually, when I said frustration, often my frustration comes from wanting something that's going to be visually appealing to others rather than just having fun in the moment. I think if I let go of all that stuff and just enjoy the process, then it's not frustrating at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important part of it, though, is that you have you do have a sense of taste, and that's why you become an artist. Everyone of us who have become artists, there's a sense of taste. There's a sense of it's not right, and there's that thing that's saying not right is the thing that it isn't always from the outside, but it's a sense within you that there's no balance, that there isn't that something's not resolved. You know, there's a story about Beethoven. I think it was Beethoven. It might have been Mozart. He'd wake up if he didn't get out of bed. One of the two of them didn't get out of bed for like days on end, and his wife used to lose her mind. So she would go to the piano and she would play an unresolved chord, and the bloke just couldn't take it. He had to get up because he had to resolve the chord. So it's things like that, you know, because he's right on that knife edge, you know, and it's so important.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Question about the cold wax, I think. Can you rub the cold beeswax over and over? Hang on, and then heat it to make it run. Okay, so the cold wax, once it's set, can you essentially rub it to heat it and make it run again or not?
There's a big red flag I'm going to wave around here. Cold wax, you don't want to bring flames near it. There's a solvent component to it, so you don't want to be using. Yeah, you'll blow yourself up, man. And there's another thing to say. I'll just turn. I haven't shown you the rest of my studio. There's the rest of my studio down there.
This is like a dream studio.
Yeah, can you actually see it? It's like the TARDIS or something. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually an extractor. Because
Gotcha.
when you're using beeswax, it can get noxious. So you've got to be a bit careful here. Beeswax, if it starts to smoke, you've essentially got it too hot, and you have to extract those fumes because they're actually toxic.
Okay, so well ventilated, yeah.
That is an absolute critical part, and you don't want to put naked flame near cold wax. You will blow yourself up.
Okay, we'll keep that.
I'm exaggerating, but it'll catch fire. Yeah.
No, absolutely, yeah. Whatever you're messing about with, whether it be oil paints, acrylics, beeswax, whatever, do a little bit of research onto whether or not they're toxic in indoor spaces, and make sure you're staying safe. But I've got in my studio, I've got a similar little extraction fan that I bought from Bunnings with a big 6-inch flexi pipe on it like that, which comes right into my easel. Yeah. So stay safe, guys. All right, a couple of other questions. Is the color on the, where did that go to? Is the color on the image coming through the wax or added, or both?
It can be both, actually. In this particular instance here, it's actually coming from the print.
Yep.
And here, I haven't actually done much to it. This is just the print with clear beeswax on it. That's nothing been done there yet at all. But down the bottom, I've started to use toning. So yeah, and up the top you can see a little bit of toning. I mean, that's guys, it's horrendous. So I don't even want to look at it. But yeah, so it's both.
Okay, beautiful stuff. So exciting. I hope there's some other people at home that are excited about the possibilities of taking their art and adding to it. And I certainly am. I want to do more.
If you're not excited, then you need to find that excitement, man.
Oh, Gail. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Sue Ellen says, Sue Ellen Cook says it's interesting to hear artists that have taken their vision further than the press of the shutter. So much more. It's the shot. She says the shot is just the beginning of the process sometimes, isn't it?
Yep. I'd agree with that 100%. Yep. And look back at what's been done before. Look at go to a little bit of art history. Do it. Don't do it for the paint. Look at the photographers. Look what's done. That guy Henry Peach Robinson I mentioned at the beginning. I mean, that bloke was literally doing Photoshop in the 1890s. He was taking a bit of that image, and then actually printing it on that same print, and then taking a bit of that and printing it on that print. The bloke was completely manufacturing images in the 1890s, you know. So we get sort of hung up on our own sense of amazingness. These guys are doing amazing stuff, you know. So get a bit of history, and you'll get a sense of depth to what's there, what's available.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. One last question from my own perspective. I've done a little bit of YouTube research on the encaustic, and I see that you can also collage and burnish other images. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, I have, and it's good fun. That actually, there's a lot of printmaking techniques that you can use using burnishing, and it's really great fun. And you can do it. The only thing you must bear in mind when you try and do that is you have to flip the image, because you're actually, you know, you have to flip the image, because if you don't, you're going to be printing it back to front.
Yeah.
So you must realize things like that come into it. I've done a bit of it, and actually I probably will use a bit of that. What I was talking about around the outside was actually letting the outside talk to the inside. I want the outside of my works to actually take the work a step further. So I've really considered that in the recent past. There's a couple of things you need to do there, though. You need to research it a bit more, because it's got to be flat as a pancake. If you're going to use plastic, it's got to be flat. When you're printing on another thing to use is like, you don't want a great printer like an Epson or something. You want like a real crappy thing that's from Officeworks. You know, you want to get those prints, because that's actually got the toner in it. So the toner is the thing that actually comes off and goes onto the wax. So that's what you want to be using. Don't use a beautiful cotton rag Hannah Mueller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess you could probably use like old newspapers and stuff like that and sort of burnish in different sections too, could you not?
Yeah, absolutely, you can. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's like, I don't even actually know if it would work anymore, because I think nowadays the inks that they use
Don't come
you remember
off.
in the 1980s,
Yeah,
it used
come
to
off
come
in your
out the
hands.
fingers and that.
Yeah.
I don't think it happens anymore. I think that
You might
changed
be
from that.
right.
So I'm not sure if it actually would work. Yeah, it's worth a try, man.
Who knows? Who knows?
Well, is your oyster, you know?
Oh, Leslie's just asking, what's the term? Caustic? Encaustic? Is it? It's
Encaustic, so it's ENCAUSTIC.
okay, brilliant.
Encaustic. Encausticos is the original Greek term. Yeah. And just do a Google, you know, for encaustic. And there's, you know, a lot of people that have done it. I know Jackie Rankin started doing it recently as well, started giving it a whirl. You know, you got it. Yeah. It's great fun. It really is great fun.
Mate, I'll be on eBay within 10 minutes of saying goodbye to you, buying some hot wax, some cold wax, and then I'll be down the op shop looking for me little fry panty thing.
That's right, mate. And if we don't hear from you for 3 or 4 years, we'll understand, mate, because that's what happens to you. Beware.
Oh, no one's heard it. No one's seen any of my work for the last 12 months as it is, so they'll understand anyway. It's all good. Mate. It's all good.
Well, Adam, thanks for doing this, mate. I'll tell you, it's wonderful to chat to everyone, because I bury myself away here and sometimes don't get to realize the interest of others around me. So that's pretty cool, man.
Absolutely, mate. Thank you. We'll wrap it up there. There's no more questions, so stick with me though, because we'll have a quick chat when I wrap it up. But everyone at home, thanks for joining me. Sorry about the hiccups, but it wouldn't be Adam Williams Creative without the hiccups, without the imperfections. Funnily, actually, I've got a new shirt that I ordered the other day. I can't wait to show it with you, because it kind of celebrates everything that's kind of a little bit funky and a little bit wrong. But thanks for sticking through. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're inspired to get out and just push those boundaries. Try multiple exposure in camera. Try printing your work and get, you know, if you've got your grandkids or your kids' paints, you know, do some paint over the top or some wax over the top. Melt crayons. I've seen melted crayons. Melt candles. See what happens. Who knows? Just have some fun with that work. And cyanotype, there's all sorts of different fun things you can have at home. Clayton, once again, thank you, mate, for the inspiration and pushing the boundaries. You've been an inspiration to me for years and years already, and even more so moving into the future after having a bit of a chat, mate. We don't do it enough. I wish I lived closer so I could come down and hang out in the studio, mate, and have some playtime with all those fun things you got down there.
Oh, that's cool, mate. Thanks, man. Thanks for doing it, Adam.
Mate, thank you so much, guys. Thanks again. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. We'll be back on Tuesday. We're doing Tuesday, Thursdays. Next Thursday, we're going to try and get a perfect live stream with G Greenslade. If you haven't heard of G Greenslade, G-double-E Greenslade, look her up. Her work is absolutely phenomenal. She does some funky things by glitching out her photos, and absolutely going to blow your mind with creativity, much like Clayton did today. Clayton, once again, thank you very much. And
Thanks, mate.
guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.